Hey, everybody. I am here with Kaitlyn of 368. How you doing this morning, Kaitlyn?
I'm good. I'm good. It's noon my time. So I'm craving a croissant right now. And that's something that my dog and I have been doing together now for a while, where when we have a big day, we just go and get a croissant together and slow down. So that's where my mind's at. But I'm going to get it into work now.
That's great. Starting the week off at a high, right? You start off with
Oh,
just puts everything else in perspective.
exactly. Exactly. The art of croissants is very underrated in this country.
Hi. Well, Kaitlyn, you are the associate director of strategy at your agency. I'd love to understand, just to start off, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your agency.
Yeah. Yeah. So I loved going to the University of Texas, but I have one gripe with them that I would like to rectify one day. And it is that if you're an advertising major, there really are only two paths they want you to take, and it's the account management path or the creative path. And so when I was in the program, I really didn't know that strategy was a thing. I knew that the creatives needed a creative brief, but who made that and how much work goes into it just was not part of our learning. And so when I got out of college, I applied for account management positions because I knew I had creative ideas, but I was not tangibly creative. And it took a few jobs to start to realize that strategy was where I belonged. And so I don't know, it's kind of like, was I meant to be, or did I find those positions? But it all worked out really well. My first internship was definitely that situation I think a lot of students find themselves in where they require experience, but how do you get experience without experience? And so I just emailed every small agency in Austin, Texas, and I ended up at an agency with just like five men, and they taught me a lot about account management. And then I worked at T3, which is now part of Material. And then I worked at RGA in Austin. And when I was at RGA was when COVID hit. And that was kind of when I had this personal realization that Austin wasn't where I wanted to be forever. And so I moved to the East Coast during that time. And I also found a new job with the agency I'm at now, which is 368. And what I really love about it is our organization is very flat in the sense that when I first joined, the rooms that I was put in at the level I was at, I was amazed.
Wow.
It was overwhelming to begin with because I just questioned myself. Do I trust myself the way they're trusting me to go in front of these people that at prior agencies, there was such organization in the sense of like so layered amongst every team that you really weren't exposed to certain people. And that's not a bad thing.
Mm.
But here we're just so much more trusting of any level, own your things, be responsible, and show up. So because of that, I've not only been able to personally grow, but as an agency, we've all helped kind of grow this idea of what strategy is and what it means to us. I would love to dive into, but I don't want to take over the mic too early.
No, for sure. We'll definitely talk about that. That's that's a really interesting story. One thing that stuck out to me was that you took the initiative of emailing out and trying to get something going for yourself, which is really cool. I think most people they'll just kind of look at what's in front of them on job boards and just try to apply there. But you really took the initiative and thought your career started that way. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's the admirable unintended consequence of anxiety. It was definitely not me trying to be impressive. It was me freaking out because graduation was coming up sooner and I didn't know what I wanted or how to start. So now I really encourage people to start a small, even if the agency has 5 people.
Yeah.
Uh, and unfortunately, it was unpaid, and that's a whole other discussion. And it's something that I also would like to see changed in the industry. Is just more access and more paid opportunities earlier on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's super important to be paid while you learn. And there are agencies out there that do that, and it's so transformative for young people that are just getting into the job market to be able to pay their bills while also learning a skill that you're investing in new employees, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it makes you feel like an employee rather than a recent college grad who's just kind of maybe in the way.
Yeah,
So, but I'm grateful regardless. I don't want to come across as ungrateful. There's just the older you get in a career and an industry, the more you see all the good and appreciate it, but you also start to realize the power you have to change the things that the younger people maybe shouldn't have to struggle with. But
one right.
we're tangent.
So at 368, you was focused on transforming the future of learning through engaging and interactive content. And I guess I was curious, I mean, how do you help clients move from a traditional advertising mindset to one where they prioritize interaction over interruption?
Mhm. That is something that helped us create our positioning. So this is such a weird time. And I think ever since probably the past 10 or 15 years have been a really weird time for advertising because with the growth of the internet and not just digital ads, but also how organic platforms play such a role in the success of those digital ads. Now it goes so far beyond we need a campaign idea. At our agency, in the process that we recommend to our clients, campaigns come last in the whole ecosystem of what we would like to take you through. And that's because there's so many other things you need to set up correctly in order to have those campaigns have the best chance of survival and really thriving. So what that is we really emphasize strategy, specifically brand strategy, helping our clients understand who are they, what is their unique positioning, how does their whole organization communicate that.
Mhm.
Often we have the marketing team telling a very different story than the sales team, than the leadership team. And so a lot of our projects start off with getting everyone on the same page. And that isn't us dictating to them what it needs to be. It is us listening, not only to them, but their customers, and seeing a through line of what maybe they're all saying just with different words.
Right.
And so once we come together and pick that positioning, then we can go and hit the ground running with creating their website or redesigning their website, making sure that they have their social media, organic and paid, ready to go. And then we get into campaigns, which that is when we can come up with what you might have seen in Mad Men. That is when you have that moment where you come up with the tagline that people know you as for years, or a really interesting creative tactic. That is where kind of most of the glory and the fun come from. But that is what we really focus on for our clients to help them understand how traditional advertising still has a role, but there's so much more that has to happen. And to the part of the question about the future of learning, that was our own look in the mirror of we do this for our clients every single day. And we had a positioning line, but it didn't feel as though it was pointed enough to help us understand who do we really want to work with long term. And so now going after people who are dedicated to the future of learning, it not only helps us align with people who share our values, which is really using advertising, communication, airspace for, like we said, creating interactions with human beings, providing value that when people see it on their screen, even if it is an ad, they're not grossed out or annoyed. They're a little bit more feeling as though it's targeted to them and it provides value to them. So that's the mentality of clients we like to align with. When it comes to what the heck is the future of learning, it can be everything. And that's what's great about a positioning is you want to keep it narrow enough to help your team kind of have a North Star, but still broad enough to where you don't limit yourself and become bored with the industry you're in. And so for us, the future of learning looks like working with clients all the way from ed tech and higher education, which is what you might assume. But then there's also a lot of clients who help with the workforce and help people make that transition that we talked about earlier from being a student into the workforce. And what does that look like without college? And what does that look like if we break systems that we're told you have to do in order to get into any sort of industry? And so that's been really empowering. We do leave about 20% of our new business time and energy to people outside of that niche just to keep it sharp because we just worked with Tomb Raider, and that was such an interesting client to work for. We designed their website. That helps us though, because it was so about gamification, place setting, bringing a character to life. And those things come up in education, learning, teaching more than you would assume. So there were a lot of questions in your question, but I also am a long-winded person. So I'll cut myself off there. But was there anything else about that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's a great answer. I loved something that resonated with me is what you said early on about unifying sales and marketing. I've come from sales and marketing, and there is this clash lots of times. So the fact that you guys take this, like you understand that that is likely going to happen, and you have a step there. Most companies don't do that, right? And so I think that that's really, really interesting and really cool that you guys do that and also are able to read between the lines to see what people are really saying, right? Because you hear it all the time. Marketing is complaining to sales that leads aren't good.
Yes.
Complaining to marketing that the leads aren't good. I've been
Yeah.
there, both sides of it. And so I'm sure that when your approach, it eliminates a lot of that, which is really cool.
We try. The number of times I've heard marketing spends the money and sales makes the money, or what does marketing even really do? And that's the part where at the end of the day, we're on the same team
Ye-
and we all want the same thing.
Yeah.
What we find that clients fall into the most, especially their sales team, is they start to lead with what their product does. And that's the point. But the problem with leading with how your product is different is the market is changing all of the time. And it doesn't take that much for your competitor to change a feature, change a product, and now have a product that's pretty much the same as yours. And a lot of the clients that come to us, they're in that position where they're kind of like, we know our value is in our people and we have loyal customers and our product is solid. But when you talk to new people, they see a million other options. And how do we now talk about what makes us different?
Mhm.
That is where brand strategy is so important. And that is my baby at the company. I am associate director of all of strategy, but really it's brand strategy that I live and breathe. And
Okay.
it's a place to be
You know,
because brand strategy never makes it onto the billboard. You don't look at a billboard and get to say, I worked on that.
yeah.
I did in laying the foundation and making sure that what it says aligns with where they want to go, but you don't often see that. And
Yeah.
for that reason, clients don't often come to us wanting that. They don't, they just want the website or they just want the campaign. And they don't understand that brand strategy is not just a fluffy document talking about personas and like positioning just because we have an artsy side. It's actually the most important step for longevity. And what I love about giving my clients a brand strategy book is you reference it for years to come. It is not a singular campaign.
Right.
And so really you get so much more for your money by buying a strategy that you can reference and keep you consistent. So then that brings me to how does that affect the sales and the marketing relationship? The sales team, it will help them talk about something that is bigger than the product and it'll help them stand out in a way that is more unique. And so if we help give the sales team a higher story that is uniquely ownable, then it naturally becomes something that is really interesting to put in marketing.
Right.
And that is how we kind of bridge the two teams. Now, everything sales talks about is still so important.
Yeah.
The product, the customer service, the features, that just becomes reason to believe for the story that we've helped you tell. And so that's really what we're trying to do here is we're not just trying to sell people things to make you think you need it. It is so important for the success of everything you do after you solidify a strategy. And
Right.
we really hope that those stories become more interesting and thus more interactive rather than like another interruption of what we're trying to sell you.
Yeah. Wow. Great answer. I want to talk about brand strategy for a second because that's at the core of what you do, right? And so for companies struggling with the concept of brand positioning, what's your advice for getting them to understand the importance of having a solid brand strategy playbook?
First and foremost is keep an open mind because a lot of decisions are made in the business world based on numbers. And I completely understand that needs to happen, but strategy doesn't immediately pay off. And you need to solidify a strategy and you see that ROI over time. And it really helps you have this more solid company, not only externally, but internally, because now everyone's going towards the same mission. Every decision that's being made is consistent. And the leadership team can be so much less involved in the day to day of marketing and storytelling and sales. They can focus on what is more important, which is driving the company and making sure everything's okay from a bigger picture. And all because of a strategy. If everyone has the same playbook, then we can all move in the same direction.
Right.
And I understand that that can be kind of hard to wrap your mind around. Why is that a priority over getting a campaign out?
Yeah.
But why waste another $1 million on a campaign that might not be telling the right story to the right people?
Right.
That's our perspective, but it's definitely something we struggle with is helping people understand the short-term versus long-term gains.
Yeah. And I think brand has now become a bigger deal. People are understanding the significance of it more so than your legacy companies from before, right? Or like this just wasn't a thing to think about brand at 20, 30, 40 years ago. Only the very large companies like Coca-Cola and Nike were really on that type of stuff. And now people are seeing the dividends paying off. Yes, it's a longer payoff. It takes a while for it to pay off.
Mhm.
And it's when it does, it's huge. And so your in-house capabilities, right? Anywhere from web development to in-house film production, it gives your clients a significant advantage. And how does having those resources in-house allow you to deliver a stronger, more unified campaign approach for your clients?
Yeah, that's a really great way to connect those two things because when you think about brand, it used to just be one medium, which was newspaper or radio. We really go that far back. And then we had newspaper and then we had TV. But at that time, all you really needed to have a brand was a logo, a name, and something that was really identifiable that became kind of a part of everyday households. Now, when you think about the number of platforms you can advertise on, it is so much harder to keep that brand story cohesive. And so instead of, oh, well, our name is on all these different platforms, that means everyone's seeing us. The
Mhm.
problem is people don't have the space in their minds to keep track of, okay, that might be the same name I saw, but it looks so different. So then it just passes by them. You need to see something an average of 7 times before it starts to sink in. And so if you're seeing something 7 times, but it looks different every time, it starts at zero again.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is help people see that brand is so important because it's really the only way to navigate this new ecosystem.
Yeah.
Now, why we have everything in-house and why we offer basically everything from beginning to the media buy is because we want to make sure that we're in control of telling that story across all of the platforms. And our strategy team has a very clear vision of what will help their client story stand out. We want to make sure that our strategist can be talking directly to our video team and making
Yeah.
sure that everything down to like the set, the actors that we hire, even the tone, the music, we are so in communication about those things because even just a song you choose for a campaign can be so off strategy. And it just does make a difference because if it doesn't line up in consumers' minds, they will not do the due diligence to see past it or to educate themselves on if this is the same brand they think they saw. So yeah, it's all about consistency and offering our clients what they need to keep up.
Mhm. Wow. It's becoming, I think now really the what I see in my mind of like the connection between strategy and actual brand, it's so apparent now because even in today's market, brand has become such an important thing with the new generation, Gen Z or Gen Alpha. Like, they want that unification. They want their brands on to be people on TikTok. And those types of brands that are doing that, like Wendy's and Nutter Butter. I don't know if you've seen Nutter Butter stuff lately. It's insane. But all that stuff it's like it's going viral and it's really creating resonance in Gen Z, Gen Alpha's hearts and brains that like, wow, this brand really gets me.
Mhm.
So I really like the intersection that you have between what brand is and what strategy is. And
Yeah.
your team, it develops everything from brand positioning to platforms and full campaigns. And you may have already answered this in a little bit, but I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper. I mean, with all these elements at play, how do you ensure that every piece from the website to the final campaign stays true to the core of brand values of your clients? I know one of the ways you do that is the unification, having everything in house, but is there any other ways there as well?
Yeah, yeah. So this is where I get to talk about the unsung heroes of every agency, and it's really the account managers and project managers that keep everything on the rails. Account managers, especially at 368, make sure that our clients understand from beginning to end exactly where we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and trust me, when you don't do those things, we hear about it. And it's the feedback we need, honestly, because it helps you realize how much we take for granted that we just naturally understand. And so we now have learned to over communicate in a way that we're also maintaining listening too, so that we can get that feedback, but also provide insight for them. Our project managers are amazing. We use so many different platforms for different parts of the process to make sure that we're all doing what we need to be doing. And then strategically, that's typically my job as the main brand strategist is okay, we've solidified this brand for this client. Now I'm going to show up to every single meeting until this campaign is out. So I get to work with the creative team, I get to work with the dev team, I get to work with the media strategy team, and really trying to understand, are we all marching towards the same goal? And I think you'll see that the creative brief is becoming slightly less important than the brand brief.
Sure.
I say that in the sense that creative briefs are still incredibly important to provide an insight for a campaign. But if that campaign doesn't ladder up to that higher brief, again, as I said earlier, it can be a waste of money. So really, when we have a long-term client that's working with us for a while, my most important goal as the brand strategist is to make sure that my creative team, dev team, media strategy team understand what is this client going for, what is their story, and what is their differentiator outside of their product or service.
Wow, that's great. As I hear you talk, I hear somebody that's very, very passionate about what they do. And I mean, not only passionate, but also very experienced, which is great. This has been wonderful, Kaitlyn. I think that even myself, I've learned a lot more about the importance of strategy than behind all of this. And so where can people find out more about you or your agency? Where's the best place to go? Want to learn more?
Yeah, I just have LinkedIn, but 368 is a special place. And I don't just say that because I work here. I really, really, really wanted to work here. And there was a while where I didn't want to be in strategy anymore and I didn't want to be in advertising anymore. And it was a combination of personal and professional, just kind of crises. But now I realize I love working here because my coworkers also view the importance of strategy. So if you are a strategist and you're interested in brand beyond a logo, you can look us up on Instagram at 368. We also have our own LinkedIn that we're really active on, 368. Yeah, I think those are probably the best places, unless you would like to reach out to us for a project, in which case you can reach out to our new business people that is on our website and you can find it there.
Great. Cool. And I'll have everything linked in the show notes as well so that he like a direct link. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much. He's been, like I said, amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you're a very good, easy conversationalist. So thank you for asking such good questions.
Thank you. Of course. All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.